This is Marion Martin. Today is January 19th, 1990, and I will be interviewing Aresta Aluisio for the Hastings Historical Society. Mr. Aluisio, can you tell me when you were born?
July 28, 1906,
Okay, and where were you born?
New York City.
And when did you come to Hastings?
When? 1907.
All right, and your parents' names?
Vincenzo Aluisio.
V-I...
Vinzeno. Zenzo.
Mm-hmm. Is that V-I-N-C or Z?
Vinzo.
Oh,
Vincenzo.
and your mother?
Nicolina. Nicolina. Nichelina.
All right. And you had some brothers. Can you tell me the names of your brothers in the
Yes.
order in which they were born?
Yes. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas. Alfred. Edward. Myself. Frank. And Enrico.
All right. There were 7 boys.
That's right.
And how much older than you was the oldest?
About 10 years. Maybe
Mhm.
9 years. 9 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And when you first came to Hastings, where did you live?
6 Prescott Place.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you stay at that address?
About 30 years.
And that was an apartment or a house?
I was private home.
How big was it, Mr. Aluisio?
It had 6 rooms.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were a pretty big family.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And did any relatives or anyone else live with you?
No.
Okay. What language did you speak at home?
95% Italian.
You did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of things did your family do when you were growing up, when you were very young?
What kind of things did they do?
What kinds of things did you do at home? Did you do
Oh.
any family, were there special things that your family liked to do together?
Um, Those times were hard then, and
Mm-hmm.
the folks really concentrated on, bringing up the children and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So but there wasn't a lot of good times like we
Mhm.
would have today.
Right,
No movies or anything like that.
right.
Any time that my father had, he would put in his garden.
Oh,
He had a big garden.
did he?
Oh yeah, he used to have maybe 300 tomato plants a year, and great big peppers, and big cucumbers, and 3-foot string beans, big long string beans. He used to raise those. They were very good.
Where was his garden?
In the backyard.
Mm-hmm. About how big a area did it cover?
Oh, I would say about 50 by 100.
Mm-hmm. Did your mother work in the garden too?
Yeah, she helped out, sure.
But it was mostly your father?
Yes.
How about you children?
But we helped weed the garden, get the weeds out, things
Uh-huh.
like that.
What kind of work did your father do?
He was a tailor.
Okay.
Okay.
And tell me about the kind of tailoring that he did.
Well, as I said, I tell everybody that he was the best tailor ever come to this country, because he worked for Henry Bendel and the Altmans, and he was very meticulous in his work.
Mm-hmm. And when he came to Hastings, did he used to take the train into B. Altman
Oh,
and Henry
yes.
Bendel?
Oh, yes. I used to commute from Hastings every day.
He did.
Yeah.
For how many years did he do that?
Oh, I don't know, a good many years. You got to remember that nobody was on a pension those days.
Mhm.
So, he just really worked until he passed away. So he did that for a good many years. Just how many years, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But up until the end, did he always go back into the city
Oh, yes.
to Bendel's or B. Altman's?
That's right.
Uh-huh. But he did also have a tailoring shop here.
Afterwards. Well, he quit New York and he opened a shop
Mm-hmm.
3 different times. After a while, he went back to New York.
Oh, I see. All right. And the first shop that he opened in Hastings was located?
At 1 Spring Street.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did your mother ever help him in the store?
No, she didn't have no time for that.
Mm-hmm. But you boys helped?
We helped at the school.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents, you said your father had a garden. Did he ever have a garden at Zinzer's too?
No.
Just his own garden in the back. Okay. You had told me before when the tape recorder wasn't on that you helped your father in his work at the tailor shop.
That's right.
Could you describe what you did, the kind of work that you did?
I helped press clothes,
Mhm.
suits.
Mm-hmm.
People would bring suits in to
And-
be pressed. And then everything, the suits had to have a crease in the front. Today they
Mhm.
don't use creases no more, so the creases had to be just so.
Mm-hmm. And how did you do that pressing? What was that like? What kind of iron did you use?
With a hot iron, with a, not electric iron, just an iron heated by gas, and sometimes on top of a coal fire.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about doing that pressing?
Oh, I didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And did your father try to teach you how to do sewing, fine sewing and tailoring?
Yeah, he tried to make a tailor out of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wanted to do it.
Did he ever have a young apprentice who was, not from the family, but...
No,
Mm.
he did everything by himself.
Mm-hmm. And you said that he worked basically up until he died. What year did he die?
I don't know, he was quite young when he died. I would say about 1935.
Mm-hmm. And when did your mother pass away?
My mother passed away, what do you want, the year?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. She outlived us all. She was 94 years old when she passed away.
Was she?
Yeah. She was a tough, very tough person. She was a very hard worker. She had to be with 7 boys.
Mm-hmm.
About 1975.
Oh, my goodness. Now, she had lived at 6 Prescott until about 1937. And then where did she move?
Well, I got married.
No, your mother. Where did she then
Oh,
move?
she stayed there.
Oh, okay. She stayed at 6.
Oh, yeah.
Did she stay at 6 Prescott until she died?
Yes.
So she lived in that house for almost 70 years.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was all fixed up. It wasn't the same house.
I see.
You see, the house was originally on the corner of Mount Hope Boulevard and Rosedale Avenue. And Rosedale Avenue was only a cow path.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved it when they were going to build the Mount Hope Boulevard. So before we moved into the house, they moved the house down to the corner of Prescott Place.
I see.
And Rosedale Avenue was only a cow path
Mm-hmm.
with strawberry on each side of the road, strawberries and stuff like that. It was nice in there. It was all wooded.
Were you the only house then around?
That's the only house there around. Well, there was houses on the corner. There was the Johnsons on Mount Hope Boulevard and Rosedale, and then there was the Horners across the street. And
Across the street from Prescott Place, you mean?
right where Mount Hope Boulevard comes at Rosedale Avenue.
Mhm.
On one side of Rosedale and Mount Hope was the Johnsons, and
Mm-hmm.
across the street was Horner.
Mm-hmm.
And those buildings are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And then up on Farragut Road, of course, was what we used to call Germantown.
Mm-hmm.
There was the three Schmidts lived in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was the line killers, and then there was a Carlton that lived next to the line killers. I forgot his name, and there's a few more houses here. I just can't think of their names. But across the street, where the Berkeley house is now, the new house, was the Lafergis. They owned everything across the street from the Germantown.
Oh, okay. Now, Germantown is that area on Farragut where there's a little road that goes back.
Right.
Okay. And those houses along that little stretch.
Yeah, between Mount Hope Boulevard and the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk goes from Farragut Road down to Rosedale.
Mm-hmm.
We call that Germantown.
Okay. And across the street from the Germantown area, it was owned by Lafergis.
Lafergis.
Behind Germantown, and near where your house was on Prescott, didn't a Martin Lafergie still own that land?
Martin?
Mm.
No. Martin come way later.
Oh.
That house was built by George Martin's house was built.
No, I mean Martin Lafergie.
Oh, I don't know what the names were. It was a redheaded fellow I know. I don't know what the names were.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't own anything on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they owned was across the street
I see.
from facing Germantown.
Mm-hmm.
They had a big piece of property there now. In fact, they owned everything from Mount Hope Boulevard up to the property now owned by the school.
You mean the Hillside School?
No, the school on Shadow Lawn.
Oh, okay.
They owned that piece of property in there, and they had a big orchard in there.
Hmm.
The Lafergis.
You mean the Burke estate owned by the school?
Right.
Okay. So, okay, I almost need a map for that. But now the side of Farragut that you lived on, the Rosedale Avenue area, that was pretty rural, as you said. Rosedale was like a cow path?
Yeah,
And Mount Hope Boulevard had not yet been built?
they built that afterwards, just after we moved in.
I see. Okay. How old was your house, the one that was moved? Was it very old when it was moved?
I imagine it was, because it had all rough floors, and we fixed everything up, put new floors down, and
Mm-hmm. Did it have inside plumbing?
no
When
plumbing.
it didn't have any plumbing at all when your parents bought it?
We eventually got water in, but we had an outhouse in the back, and then after we did get plumbing put in and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, where did your mother get the water?
We used to get a lot of water from the well, corner of right alongside of where Mount Hope Boulevard comes down. There used to be a beautiful spring there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great water, the best water we could ever have.
Now this was at where Mount Hope Boulevard meets Farragut?
Where Mount Hope Boulevard meets Rosedale.
Meets Rosedale. Where was the pump? There was a spring with a pump, or did you lower
No
a...
pump. We used to come right down the hill, right through all the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and into this little well, like a cistern.
I see.
But it was beautiful water. It was crystal clear.
And the cistern was man-made?
Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't a natural?
No, it was natural.
Oh, it wasn't something that they made out of
No,
concrete to
no.
hold the water?
No, it was just a natural thing,
Oh, like a pond?
like a little pond,
Uh-huh.
not too big.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, somebody built something to built a shed on top afterwards to keep the leaves and things off.
Mm-hmm. So, that's interesting. In the early years, your family got their water from there. Do you remember?
Even after we had water in the house,
Mm-hmm.
we used to drink that water.
Mm-hmm.
Even after we had city water, we used to go over there and get the water for a long time until they built the houses in. When they built the houses in, then they did away with that pond.
I see. Was the spring located on the south side
South side
Of-
of Mount Hope Boulevard.
of Mount Hope Boulevard? Was it on the east side or the west side of Rosedale Avenue?
No, that would be on the east side of Rosedale.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gosh, that's interesting. And Do you remember how old you were when your parents had plumbing put into the house?
Oh, I don't know. I can't think that far back.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first time that you didn't go out to use the outhouse?
No.
And instead there was something in the house?
No. I don't remember. I can't remember those dates.
Right. Well, I didn't necessarily mean the date, but
Well,
about
I-
how old you were, because then we could figure out the date.
Yeah, I could never figure out the dates on that.
I wonder if it was because you were so young.
Probably, yes.
Maybe they did it very soon after they moved in?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
But you remember going to get the water?
oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
We used to go there in the summertime barefooted. We'd never wear shoes in the summertime. We used to run around barefooted all over.
Uh-huh.
There used to be a path from our house right over to that spring,
Oh.
which was parallel with Rosedale Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents socialize with people in the neighborhood very much?
There was nobody in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned a couple of people that were along Rosedale.
Well, they come later.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. they
In the
come
early
out.
years, you were alone there.
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
About how long?
I don't know.
Were you still in school when people
Oh,
moved in?
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jack Martin built George Martin's house. And Ricky, not Ricky Brothers, but his father,
Mm-hmm.
built a couple on Rosedale.
Mm-hmm.
And,
There were some houses down by the quarry.
yes. Well, there was 1, 2, 3 of those houses from the quarry. They were moved.
Mm-hmm.
The original houses, especially the one that goes right into the entrance of the quarry.
Mm-hmm.
That was moved, and 2 across the street. They were owned by the school when they built the school.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was on the corner of Mount Hope Boulevard and Farragut.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they used that for an office one time, the school did.
Hmm.
And then
Is that the house that's right up against the
yeah.
quarry?
Mhm.
Mm.
And then there was 2 of them on School Street,
Mm-hmm.
which was moved over there.
I see. Okay.
Moved by Nicholas Brothers. They had these great big logs, and they used to put a lot of grease on them. They had the horses pull the house down on these great big logs.
Wow. And do you remember that that quarry being in operation?
Oh, sure.
Tell me about that.
Well, they used to do a lot of blasting there, and they had a big piece of machinery with a tumbler in there with different size holes, and different size stones would come out of those holes, so that they would separate the big pieces of stones from the small pieces of stones.
Hmm.
And a lot of that stone was used with the buildings around here. I think a lot of that stone was used up at Master School.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it bluestone?
Well, it wasn't blue, it was gray.
Gray. Okay. What kind of stone is it?
Oh, it's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they have a name for it,
Mm-hmm.
but we remember them operating it.
Hmm. And what buildings in Hastings do you know were built from that stone, from that quarry?
I really don't know. Of course, everything those days, was out of stone,
Mm-hmm.
because the mechanics were from the other side, from the old country, and they were stonemasons and stuff like that, and that's all they knew. They didn't have
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have the lumber like they have today. They didn't have the carpenters.
Mm-hmm.
So everything they built, most of it was stones, and stone
Mhm.
walls, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it come out of that quarry.
Mm-hmm. Do you know when the quarry stopped operating?
No, I can't give you a date on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Now, you said earlier that your parents, those were hard times and that there wasn't that much recreation, that your parents were busy raising a family of 7 boys. What kind of hours did your father keep in his work? Do you remember?
Well, I think he would get something like the
he'd get an early train out of Hastings in the morning, and he wouldn't get home at night until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by an early train in the morning?
Well, I think maybe he got something around 7:30, 7
Uh-huh.
o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Did he work on Saturdays?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then when he came home, his primary recreation was working in the garden?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
If he had any more energy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's all according to the season of the year.
Right, sure. What did you all do in the wintertime?
Well, we try to keep warm.
Mm-hmm.
We had no heat in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had oil stoves. And I remember one of the oil stoves went on fire one day, and my mother grabbed that oil stove and just grabbed it and threw it right out the window.
Wow.
Yeah.
Through the glass?
Fun?
I mean, the window was closed.
Yeah.
And she just threw it right through the
Yeah.
glass, and did she burn herself?
No.
She sounds like a person who could really act in an
Oh,
emergency.
Yeah, she had to be active with all those kids.
Yeah.
She was tough. She was a hard worker. She was a tough girl.
Tell me about the kind of work that she did at home. When you were little and you were at home, did you help her?
Oh yeah, we all had chores to do. We all worked in the garden. We all chopped wood and take care of the furnace, take out the ashes and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Now you said there was an oil stove. Did you also have a wood stove?
Oh sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was yeah. Well, that's what it was. The cook stove was the coal stove for cooking. The oil stove was for heating.
I see.
You know, one of those round perfection stoves.
And what did you use for the wood for?
Oh, there was a lot of trees. I used to cut down the trees.
But what did you use the wood for in the house?
What did we what?
Did you put the wood in the coal stove?
Oh, sure.
Oh, you can
Well,
use
we'd
wood.
use that for starting, and then we'd get a good fire going, then you put the coal on top.
I see.
That'd be a starter.
Right. Okay.
We used to cut down a lot of trees. There were a lot of trees around. We used to fall down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of lumber around.
Mm-hmm. And you and your brothers did that?
I used to go up and cut down trees for a long time, you know, when I was 12, 14 years old. I used to go up there with a big axe and cut down great big trees.
Mm-hmm.
Then one day I was stopped.
By whom?
Cap Cronell. He was Puss Cronell's father.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you know, you can't do that anymore. I said, why not? He said, because we're getting a lot of complaints. You know, people starting to build up on top of the hill, up in Hamilton Avenue and Jefferson Avenue, and they used to watch me cut these trees down. They didn't think it was right, but I used to stink up there once in a while and chop down the tree. I used to love to chop down the trees.
Uh-huh.
That was good sport.
How old were you when you kind of had to stop doing that because there were just too many people who were
Oh, I
complaining?
would say maybe 14,
Mm-hmm.
13, 14 years
Mm-hmm.
old.
That's pretty dangerous, chopping down.
Oh, it's not dangerous. You gotta know how to do it. That's all. You gotta know how to swing the axe.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I could do it today.
Did your brothers also do that?
Yeah, they did some of it too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents belong to any social any organizations in town?
No, I don't think there was any organizations.
Well, like, your father could have belonged to protection.
No. Well, there were different kind of people. You couldn't get into protection, I don't think, unless you were German.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't that kind of a, he wasn't that kind of a mixer.
Mm-hmm.
See, you ought to turn that off.
You said before that Italian was the language that you spoke at home 95% of the time.
Yes.
Was that true right up, when you were 15 years old and when you were
yes.
20 years old?
Well, sure, because my mother had no friends around, to learn the English language.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to speak her language.
Mm-hmm. Were there no Italian women in Hastings who she was friends with?
There were a few. There were like the Perettis, and well, what Perettis? There was the Perettis that lived down well, first they lived on Farragut Avenue near Uniontown, and then one of the brothers lived down, well, right near here someplace.
that was Joe Peretti's grandfather.
Mhm.
Peretti's now.
Mhm.
That was the grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And but they didn't mingle because
You mean they meaning your mother?
pardon me.
They meaning your mother and Mrs. Peretti?
Yeah, they knew one another, you know,
Mhm.
but they didn't socialize because they come from different parts of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. In Italy, they had a lot of dialects,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I don't know why they didn't get along. They got along, but
Mhm.
they didn't socialize.
Mhm.
Well, people didn't socialize that much those days.
But do you think it was a little lonely for your mother?
Well, with 7 boys, it wasn't very lonely.
Uh-huh. But she didn't have any women to talk to.
No. Weekends, there'd be a lot of my father's friends would come up from New York,
Oh.
and he would give them, you know, some of the fruits and stuff out of the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Even grapes. We had a great big grape arbor.
Oh.
And but anyway, he'd take about 3 tomatoes and fill a big bag. The tomatoes was 5-6 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
He'd take about 3 of those to fill up a big bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to come up weekends and.
Did your father's friends bring their wives?
Bobby?
Did your father's friends bring their wives with them when they came up on
Sometimes,
weekends?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Were your parents friends of the Salvaggios?
Bobby?
Were your parents friends of the Salvaggios?
No, they knew them, but they weren't friends. I don't know what part of Italy they come from.
Mm-hmm.
They knew them, because in fact, I think they repaired our shoes quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did your mother ever learn English then as she got older?
Pardon me?
Did your mother ever learn English as she got older?
Eventually, as the boys went to school, she picked up the
Mhm.
language quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Did she ever attend classes herself at Hastings?
Did she what?
Did she ever attend classes herself?
No.
Okay.
I don't think they had any such classes those days.
Uh-huh. I think they did in the 30s, but maybe not
Yeah.
before. I don't know. But your father spoke some English.
Yeah, my father spoke pretty good English.
Mhm.
Fair.
Mm-hmm. Who managed the money in your family?
Who managed the money? My mother.
Did she?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My father come home and give her the envelope.
Mm-hmm. What about you boys when you worked for your father, and then did you boys have other jobs where you earn money?
Yeah, we had other jobs. We used to sell some of the produce we raised in the garden too.
Oh.
And I used to go up over the hills with a wagon and
Mhm.
sell to different people.
Mm-hmm.
Sell some of the produce.
Who were some of your customers? Do you remember?
Oh, there was the Sure Puffs and the Smiths, not Schmidt, but Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, can't remember now. That's a long time ago.
Did these people live around Mount Hope Boulevard?
Yeah, near Mount Hope Boulevard and Lincoln Avenue, then through there.
Mm-hmm.
The Short Puffs, I remember that because we went swimming with the Short Puffs and the Smiths over in Sawmill before they built the park where there used to be a swimming hole over there.
Oh.
And about 200 children would come in every year from the Salvation Army. Salvation Army had a camp up
Mhm.
by the St. Andrews Golf Club.
Yes.
And about 200 kids just come in there every summer and learn how to swim.
Oh, I knew about the camp, but I didn't
Yeah.
know that they used the swimming hole.
Yeah.
In
It was a very nice place. There
Uh-huh.
was a great big rock in the middle and you could dive off the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And after a rainstorm, the Schmitz and the Sure Puffs, they were great swimmers. They would climb up a tree and dive into the water. And the stream was, that river really flowed very hard after a storm.
Hmm.
They were great swimmers.
And it was deep enough there to dive.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, they'd go up in a tree and dive down. Good divers, good swimmers.
You learned to swim there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents ever go there swimming?
No,
Just kids, no older people?
no.
Did you skinny dip?
What?
Did you skinny dip?
No.
People wore
We all that tight.
something. Okay. You said that your mother managed the money and that you earned some money selling produce. Did you ever sell any produce to the local markets in Hastings?
Oh, no,
No.
no.
Okay.
Then I worked
for a while there was the Griffins had a store, and the Cracks had a store. I worked for them delivering groceries.
Now tell me where those stores were located.
Well, one
Store and the
Griffin
crack store.
was on Stanley Avenue and at Fairmount on the northeast corner, and the Crack store was on the corner of Fairmount and Stanley on the southeast corner. The opposite.
And were they similar kinds of stores?
Yes,
Oh.
grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
And but the Cracks, they operated a miniature mail drop there. It was like a little post office,
Mm-hmm.
and they operated that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that was closed up, and I'm not sure about this, but I think as the World War II came on, let's see. Oh no, World War I, I guess. They might have, the government might have closed them up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Because they were German?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But one of the Cracks still live in there. In fact,
Yes.
Mrs. Crack, the daughter, still lives over there in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the daughter-in-law. And the grandson lives over here on Broadway.
Yes. Yes, I know
He's
them.
he's a member of First Reformed Church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what did you do at the stores? What kind of work did you do?
Well, I just made deliveries.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how much you got paid for that?
No, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't very much. You know, money was scarce, and you know, even a dollar, you know, went a long ways those days.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember what I got paid.
Mm-hmm. And
Whatever it was good.
and what did you do with it after you got it?
I gave it to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Were all you boys expected to have little jobs after school?
Well, they all kept pretty busy, but yeah, they all.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, he did work, and but yeah, they all kept pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. Did your father take the train from the Mount Hope station?
No.
Oh.
Down here in Hastings.
Why was that?
Well, I guess it was easier to walk down a hill every morning,
Okay.
and the connections were better,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the end. You know, after a while they electrified this and had
Mm-hmm.
better stations.
It was faster.
And not only that, the Mount Hope train didn't go all the way down. You'd have to get off at High Bridge
Mm-hmm.
and switch over to the station
Mhm.
anyway, to this train.
Mm-hmm. You had 6 brothers and sisters. 6 brothers. How many of them stayed in Hastings?
Well, all of them stayed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie moved to Florida for a while, and Tommy moved to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
What took them away from Hastings? Do you know why they left?
Well, Eddie retired and went to Florida.
Oh, so he lived to Hastings until he was
Yeah.
65? Or
Oh, I don't know what age he was,
mm-hmm.
but he retired and they moved to Florida. He passed away about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy, I don't know, he married a girl out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how he met her or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where he passed away.
Mm-hmm. Just a few more questions about your childhood. Well, do you remember playing any games with your brothers?
Well, we used to play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the kids used to come off the hill and then around across the street from our house was a little baseball lot. We used to play ball in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball.
And you told me before that you went to the Hastings schools.
By what?
You went to Hastings schools. And what year did you start?
Well, that's
Probably around 1913?
that's right. I was 7 years old, 1913.
1913 or 1914. And when did you finish?
8 years later.
Okay. And what do you remember about your early years in school? Did you have any favorite teachers?
Yeah, I had some good teachers. I had There was Polly Van Ostrin, everybody knew her.
Spell her last name?
Van Ostrin, V-O-N.
Mm-hmm.
N-O-S-T-R-A-N-D, Van Ostrin.
Mm-hmm. What did she teach?
She taught the 8th grade. She taught English and well, I think that's all she taught. Yeah, she taught 7th and 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I had another good teacher. Then she came down from Pleasantville. She was very good. I got in her class in the 7th grade, and in one year she had the whole class ready for Regents. And the stupid principal we had didn't order enough Regents papers.
Oh.
Yeah. And she cried like a little baby. Her name was Welcher.
Miss Welcher?
Welcher, yeah. She comes from Pleasantville.
How do you spell her name?
How? W-E-L-C-H-E-R.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But she was good. She was, you walked out of the classroom at night on the afternoon, and if you didn't have the books under your arm, she'd just hold out her finger and tell you to go back and get the books.
Mm-hmm.
And she was strict, but she was good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she taught arithmetic, and she was good. The following year she quit that year. She got bad, she quit.
She got bad?
She got mad.
Oh.
She got angry.
Because
They didn't order enough papers.
who was the principal?
I think it was the Murphys. Murphy.
Oh, now he was the superintendent.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think they had principals then,
I see. Okay.
as far as I know. I don't
Uh-huh.
think they did. So next year we had a different teacher, and she taught us arithmetic altogether different, and I wouldn't do it for her.
Hmm.
And she taught us one measure, a square root, and everything. And I just wouldn't do any homework. Wouldn't do any homework. Wouldn't do any work in school. And anyway, when the Regents time come, I didn't think I was going to pass. Anyway, on the Regents, there was 2 questions on board measure and square root, and I did them, and I got them right. She gave me double credits. You know why?
Why?
Of course, she never taught us. And I remember from the other teacher.
Right.
And she says, "How did you know that?" I said, "Well, Mrs. Welch taught us."
Mm-hmm.
But her way of teaching was altogether different, and I just couldn't get it.
Hmm. Now, when Miss Welcher's class, all the children were prepared for the Regents and there weren't enough papers, how did they decide which kids would take the Regents?
We were in the 7th grade then, and we were promoted to the 8th.
Oh, so the 7th graders didn't take the Regents because there weren't enough papers?
That's right.
Oh, so you waited until 8th grade to take them?
But then we had to take the classes all over, go into the 8th grade.
Oh, gosh.
You see, Miss Welch had the 7th grade, and
Mhm.
Van Ostrom had the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Did Miss Van Ostrom teach you math too?
No.
No. What do you remember about, let's see, what school did you go to? You didn't go to Fraser School.
Pardon me?
You didn't go to Fraser School.
No.
What school building was it?
Well, I started in Franklin School,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wound up in the middle school.
Mm-hmm. Was the Farragut School a new building when you went there?
No, it was quite old.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know how old it was, but it was there. I don't remember them building it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At the time when you finished 8th grade, were you sorry to leave school?
No, I think I was glad to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody liked to go to school those days.
Mm-hmm.
I think the kids are different today. I guess they build it into their heads that you got to go to school. But those days, it just said you just wanted to get out.
Mm-hmm. Did your brothers all go as far as the 8th grade? Your older brothers?
Yes.
They went that far? Because they could have quit earlier, I guess.
Yeah, but as far as I know, they all went to the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. But some of your younger brothers went on further, didn't they?
Let's see, Frank I think went to high school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Rico did. I think Rico only went to 8th grade. I think Frank graduated from high school.
I see. And when you graduated, what did you then do? Because now you had all day.
Yeah. went to work.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of work did you do?
Electrical work. I went down to New York. I used to get the 650 out of Hastings.
Mm-hmm.
I traveled to New York.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for one contractor, 116th Street. And I worked for another contractor on 94th Street, Columbus Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd wired a lot of those brownstone houses down there.
Interesting. Were you an apprentice?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was only 15, 16 years old.
Right. And you had to learn all the skills, learn how to do it.
Well, I had a German guy working with me. He was my mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And he was good.
This was in New York for
In
the
New York,
contractor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was good. He was a good mechanic, and we did a lot of that work in New York. We did a lot of big apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was converting that at that time from gas going to electric.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to take down these great big chandeliers, these brass chandeliers with
Mhm.
double lights on them. We used to throw them away by the truckload.
Oh my goodness.
Now that they're selling them for $150 a piece.
Right, or more probably.
Yeah.
Now this would be let's see, I'm trying to get the year when you finished the 8th grade.
Yeah.
If you started school around 1913 or 1914,
That'd be about 1923. Wouldn't it?
right, 1921 or 1922. Do you remember the year when you finished the 8th grade and when you started working in New York?
Well, it was right after that.
Mm-hmm.
It was right after I don't know how I got that job. I don't know when I got an ad in the paper, how, but I don't know when I got I don't know. I went to work for Davis first, and then from Davis I went to Quick.
And how much did you earn? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
And how long did you do that?
I did that for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And then what next?
Then I came to Hastings and started doing electrical work at Hastings
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Then when the depression came, then you couldn't, nobody had any money to do that kind of work, so I went to the laundry business.
Okay. Can I just go back just before we get to the laundry? Did you have to pass a test to get a license as an electrician?
No, nobody had a license those days.
Oh. So you just could come and do it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But during the Depression, there was not work for electricians?
No. Well, everything just stood still.
Mm-hmm. When this row of buildings on the east side of Warburton went up in the late 1920s, you were working in Hastings then. Did you do any work?
I wired all of them.
You did?
I wired every building from Villard Avenue,
Mhm.
not the corner building. I didn't wire that one, where the Chinese store is now.
Right.
I wired every building from there all the way down, including this building and the corner building, the big building on the corner.
Yes.
I wired every building
Oh, they were all built in like 1928 or...
just before the crash.
Uh-huh.
Al Smith's picture was in every window, and there was 14 stores up there. And Al Smith, when he was governor of New York, and he run for president of the United States,
Mhm.
he had a full-size picture
Mm-hmm.
in each window.
As the stores were being built?
Yeah. The windows were red, and they had a picture of pasted
Uh-huh.
on the windows.
Now, were you the chief electrical contractor? Were you working for yourself or you were working for someone
No, I
else?
worked for my brother. He was a contractor.
And which brother was that?
That was Alfred.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He was the third brother, so he was about
That's right.
4 years older than you?
That's right.
Uh-huh. I didn't realize that your older brothers had become electricians before you.
Yeah.
Was he the only electrician?
That's the only him and I.
Mm-hmm. So you were working for him?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, what other jobs did you do during the 1920s in Hastings?
Oh, I wired all the houses on South Calumet. I wired almost all the houses on Darwin. I wired a lot of houses on Villard Avenue that Herring built, 69 Villard, and the one around the corner on Euclid Avenue, the big house, and then the one across the street. I wired the mayor's house where she's living now, and the
Mhm.
house next door. And that was for Herring,
Mhm.
Herring Realty. And then Denick was building a lot of houses up at Hudson House.
What name was that?
Denick,
Denick.
yeah.
D-E-N-N.
R-C-K.
Uh-huh.
He built a lot of houses. He built all those houses on Kent Avenue. and
On what avenue?
Kent.
Uh-huh.
And South State Avenue, and
Mhm.
a couple on Ravensdale Road and Overlook Road. He built all those houses up from Mount Hope Boulevard down Overlook Road down to Fairmount.
Hmm.
He built all those houses. We wired all those houses.
You were very busy in Hastings
Oh,
in
we
the
did.
1920s.
We did a lot of work.
Just you and your brother.
Yeah.
You must have been making good money.
Yeah, we made money.
Mm-hmm. Were there other competitors, other electricians in town?
Not many. There were a couple. Wagner was here before us, Otto Wagner. You probably know Elsie Wagner.
I was going to say, was that her father?
Her father.
Uh-huh.
He was very good.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good electrician. And then, let's see, there was Bill Pierce in Dobbs Ferry. You probably heard of Jess Pierce.
Mhm.
He worked for the Statesman.
Yes.
His brother Bill. And he was,
Mm-hmm.
he did some work around. But we did all the work through here.
Well, you seem to have quickly become the main electricians.
Oh, yeah, no question about it.
By the time the Depression came, were you the busiest electricians in Hastings? Hmm.
That just about stopped everything.
But you didn't do Shadow Lawn, did you? Did you wire?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
We did the first houses in Shadow Lawn. We did the first houses in Ravensdale,
Mm-hmm.
and the first houses in Dobbs Ferry up in Meadowbrook.
Mm-hmm.
They're all done by the Homeland Company.
Mm-hmm.
And Stanley Penska, he was the general contractor for the Homeland Company. And we wired all those houses for him.
Hmm.
And some in Shadow Lawn.
Mm-hmm.
On Windsor Road, a few on Windsor Road we did.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Homeland Company, they I don't know, they dissolved or something.
Mm-hmm. Probably when the Depression came?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But Penska kept on, he kept building, and we used to do, once in a while, he'd build a house here and there. We still kept doing his work.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to collect and be paid on all the jobs you did?
Oh, everybody owed us money. Those days, you know, when the crash came, everybody owed us money. The Herrings owed us a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They eventually went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way business is.
Mm-hmm. So then the crash came and,
I opened up the laundry.
oh, tell me about the laundry.
I started a Hastings individual laundry service. And I opened up a store. I rented a store up the street here, one of the ones that I wired. And the first day we opened up on a Monday,
What's there now?
I don't know, one of those stores up there.
But this is like along where the Office Inc. is?
Yeah.
Okay. On the east side of Warburton?
On the east side of Woodward, right. And the first Monday we opened up, we had so much laundry, I couldn't wash them in a year. The clothes were piled up to the ceiling. And we just had the small individual laundry, that's what I specified. The reason I went to the laundry
No,
business...
wait, okay, just tell me now. You opened up, how did you get all this laundry? Did people just come and drop it off?
No, I canvassed the town, I canvassed people, and
Mhm.
I told them I was going to laundry business, and they would give me the bundle, and we'd pick up the bundle.
Mm-hmm.
But we never operated there.
That was just the pickup plate or the drop?
Well, we had so much clothes, we couldn't do it.
I see. How many washing machines did you have there?
Oh, I had about 6 wash machines.
Mhm.
Well, we never used them. I couldn't. I got a hold of a laundry in New York, and they did all my work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I opened up the laundry over in Uniontown, where the garage is, over on Farragut Road.
Okay, where the garage is, where the Farragut garage is?
Yeah,
In the service station building, you had the laundry?
I had all laundry there. I had about 30 people working there. And I didn't know anything about the laundry business. We had 4 trucks. We used to pick up from here to Pleasantville.
Mm-hmm.
And the laundry was terrible.
What do you mean?
Well, the wash wasn't coming out right.
Mm-hmm. Because you didn't know anything about the laundry business?
No, I didn't know the laundry business. Oh, I know about the laundry business when I used to watch my mother wash clothes. My hair with a scrub board.
Well, how did you decide to go into the laundry business?
Well, we had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured Clean Art had two routes in Hastings. There were
Tell me this what?
Clean Art.
C-L-E-A-N?
Yeah, C-L-E-A-N-A-R-T, Clean
Mhm.
Art. They had two routes in Hastings to pick up laundry.
Mhm.
Eddie Campion was one who lived here in Hastings. He was Bill Haynes' brother-in-law. And anyway, I figured out the laundry, Rycliffe Laundry, and there was 3 or 4 from from Mount Vernon. Anyway, it's 27 laundries were coming into Hastings and picking up laundry. So if these guys are making money picking up laundry and there's 27 coming to Hastings, I think I could take some of that business away.
Mm-hmm.
And I did.
Mm-hmm.
I took a lot of business away from them.
Did you keep it?
Huh?
Did you keep the business for very long?
No. I opened up this, this fellow in New York, that was the Stark Laundry. That was the name of the laundry. They were very nice people. And they took care of all my business there for, maybe 6 months. Then I opened up this place in Uniontown.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great big steam boiler. We used to burn a ton of coal a day.
A ton of
Yeah.
coal a day.
Yeah, well, I had all these girls ironing, and the great big laundry machine. Had laundry machines from this wall over to that wall, maybe bigger. You know, you could put 10 bundles of clothes in at one time.
One machine would be
Yeah,
that,
big.
like that's what, 8 feet?
10 feet.
10 feet, a machine? And how many machines did you have?
Oh, I had 3.
Mm-hmm.
I had this great big boiler, and
What did the boiler do? Make the water hot?
Make steam, yeah, make the boiler hot.
Mhm.
And we used to boil the clothes.
Oh.
As the water went in, you open up the steam valve to heat the water.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, old man Schmidt come over and he says, he was the building inspector. He says, he says, you're in violation here. I said, yeah. He got a lot of complaints because that soft coal was pushing out a lot of smoke.
Oh.
And the people over in the area was complaining, rightfully so. They had a good right to complain.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I gave half the business away to one of the fellows that worked for Clean Art.
Mm-hmm.
And he come up and he run the business for a year, and we weren't making any money. Because he didn't know the business. He didn't know any more about the business than I did, but he come very highly recommended. And he just let everything go. I had a lot of customers. I had customers all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so then one of the salesmen come in, the store one day, says, hey, he says, if you want to get out of this business, he says, I got a couple of boys in New York, a couple of brother-in-laws, they had a hand laundry, and they wanted to go into the steam laundry business. That's what I have, the steam laundry. He said, you want to make a connection for you, you get down and meet him. So I said, okay, that's what I did. So I got rid of Pat Kenny, and I went down to New York to combine with those guys. And anyway, things didn't go too good down there either. So I just pulled away. Then I come back to Hastings and I went business for myself.
Mm-hmm. And what year did you close the laundry on Farragut? Did you close it when you went into New York to work
Yeah.
with those other 2 men? Uh-huh.
Closed everything. I took all my shades from Hastings and brought them down in New York.
Mm-hmm.
We had 5 stores in New York, down 190th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get the wash to come out right in the Hastings laundry?
Yeah, after a while it came out right. Well, the water company made a big mistake. We had a 2-inch pipe going into the building. Instead of the water company hooking up to the water main, they hooked us up to a sewer line.
Hmm.
And
So what did that mean?
well, that's why the clothes weren't coming out right.
Because you were using dirty water?
Yeah. So we got a hold of the water company, and then they put a test. They found out they made the mistake. I should have sued them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they made a big mistake. Then they come up, they got everything up the road again, and then we were all right. I even had a water softener, great big tank,
Mhm.
10 feet high, about 5 feet diameter. You put the salt in it and stuff like that, to make the water soft. So
Mhm.
you use less chemicals, less salt, less soap.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, it's a tough business.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like the clothes nice and white, and some people like it with a little blue. Some people want a soft collar, and that the guy, he's a big lawyer, he wants a stiff collar. And that's one of the reasons that we got lost in New York, because these fellas, I had all these big lawyers that lived on the Grand Concourse. The Grand Concourse was a big thing then.
Yep.
And they were very fussy. And I couldn't satisfy them. So I got out of it.
I don't understand the difference between a hand laundry and a steam laundry.
Well, the hand laundry, all the ironing is done by hand.
Yes, the way they do in the Chinese laundry here in
Right,
Hastings.
exactly. And the steam laundry, you got, like, you do the sleeves, there's two things come up, and you heat it with steam, you just take the guy's shirt and just pull the sleeves right on top of it, irons the sleeves right away. And then you got another machine, like a press, like a tailor's press.
Mhm.
You put the shirt on there, you do the front first, and then the other side and the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another machine that just does the collar.
Mm-hmm. But was, to have a shirt done by a steam laundry costs less than to have it done by hand laundry?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was,
We used to do shirts, I'll tell you, we used to do shirts with if you sent us a bundle to wash,
Mhm.
30 pounds,
Mhm.
we would do it for $1.
mm,
And if you wanted the shirts finished,
Mhm.
we would do the shirts for a nickel a piece.
mm. Wow. And you had 30 women working there?
Well, we had men and women both.
Oh.
With the driver, they had about 30 people altogether.
Uh-huh. Were these mostly local Hastings people?
There's a lot of them were in Hastings.
Mhm.
Some were from the Pier Park, and some from Yonkers.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
You know, you had a driver on each truck.
Mm-hmm. My goodness.
It's tough.
Right. So
But
how
that
many years?
was a lot of money.
Yeah. How many years then were you in the laundry business altogether?
Altogether, I would say about 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you decided to go into business for yourself.
Yeah.
And was this back in the electrical business?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you had left that because of the Depression.
Pardon me?
You had left that because it was too difficult to make money during the Depression.
Sure.
Had things changed?
Have things changed? Oh,
Had
yeah.
things changed?
Have things changed?
Well, after you were doing the laundry,
Yeah.
how were you able to go back?
Well, things started to get better.
Okay.
Yeah, things started to get better.
What were your first jobs doing electrical work
Well,
after?
I got a few jobs in Yonkers. I met some people. When I got rid of the laundry business, I had my route through here. And I sold out the Yonkers Perfect Laundry. And I met different people on Yonkers that had bigger profits and stuff, so I started with them, doing some work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got started.
Were you in business with your brother Thomas still?
Pardon me?
Did you go in business with your brother Thomas?
No.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't in the laundry business with you, was he?
No, none of them in the laundry business with me.
Mm-hmm. So you got back into the electrical business, and then when did you get the store?
I got the store, I opened up the store in 1932.
Mm-hmm.
I rented the store from Bill Edwards. Did
Mm-hmm.
you know him?
Nope.
Did you know Larry Cowell?
Yes.
Well, Larry Cowell, Bill Edwards was Larry Cowell's father-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I got a card from him this Christmas.
From Bill Edwards?
No, Bill Edwards is dead.
Oh.
From Larry.
Uh-huh.
Larry Cowell. He's in Florida, he retired to Florida. And I got a nice card from him this Christmas. So Bill Edwards rented me the store, and then after I was in here a couple of years, he says, things were still rough. You know, we were working for $1 an hour. And then we had to operate the store and a telephone and a truck and everything, $2 an hour. And we come in one day and he says, hey, Roost, he says, why don't you buy this building? I said, I haven't got any money to buy this building. So I know him very well. He was the head of the First National Bank at Hastings
All right.
when it was on Main Street, when the bank was on Main Street.
Yes.
And then he got out and went to the real estate business.
That's on the corner of Whitman and
Right,
Main.
the stone building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was the head. He was the,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you call him. He run the bank.
President?
I can imagine so.
Mm-hmm.
He run the bank. Then he got out of there and he went to real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
We said, why don't you buy this building? I haven't got any money to buy this building, Bill. He said, I'll fix it up for you. He said, so that it won't cost you any more than the rent you're paying. I said, yeah. He says, I'll get back to you. I said, okay. So he did. He came in with the contract and everything. And who owned the building? I don't know who owned the building. I used to give him every month. I used to give him the check. And the guy who owned the building was Dr. Smith, who happened to be my eye doctor
Oh,
from Park Avenue in Yonkers.
you didn't know he owned the building?
No. So then he made a contract with Dr. Smith and everything. I kept going to Dr. Smith. And one day after I was in here, after I bought the building about 10 years later, I was down there for the checkup. A good doctor, good eye doctor. He was top man around the area. And I was down there for a checkup, and he said to me, he says, you know, he says, I got a lot of property around, he says, but nobody pays their rents like you do. I said, no kidding. He said, yeah. I said, okay, that's good. That made me feel good. He was a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good doctor.
That was after you'd bought the building.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
So you started renting the building in 1932,
Yeah.
and then you bought the building 2 years later.
About 2 years later, I bought the building there.
Uh-huh. And how much did you pay for the building?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I paid for it.
Okay.
But not even wonder why I was paying for rent anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what I paid for the building.
And
That's interesting. I ought to try to find out sometime.
what was the store like in the early years?
The store?
Mm-hmm. It was smaller than it is
Oh,
now.
yeah, I had a petition halfway down. And
First of all, the northern part was added later, is that
yeah,
right?
there used to be a diner there.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be the Hastings Diner.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I come in here for a while, the store got to be too small. So I got the petition, I moved the petition back further. And then it still got too small, so I needed to expand, so I bought the diner.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't doing much business anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought the diner and I moved it across the street where the funeral parlor is.
Mm-hmm.
Then I sold it. And then I put this, built that addition, the
Mm-hmm.
front part.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the back here, there was a big warehouse
Mm-hmm.
where the parking lot is.
Mm-hmm. Did you own that warehouse?
Yeah, was part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I had a warehouse there, and Ferrera Brothers, that owned the
Grocery store?
grocery store, they had also had a little warehouse there. But
Mhm.
mine was bigger than theirs. So when I wanted to build a parking lot, then, well, first I'm getting ahead of myself. I built that first section first. Then then the store got to be too small. So then they wanted to, I was using that as a warehouse back there, had to get all the picks and shovels, all the big
Mm-hmm.
things in there. So the village wanted to build a parking lot, they wanted to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a deal. I got a certain amount of money from them, I don't know how much, and then I increased that part, this is 548 and that's
Mhm.
550, well, right?
Right.
So I made 550 bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice when you go outside, the 550 extends out about 5 feet further than this building.
I see, yeah.
But it's all part of my property.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wanted to build it, extend that, the village didn't want me to keep it in line with this building here. And I said, no, I said, I need this space. I said, I need that showroom.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we had a meeting one night. And I went down to the municipal building, and Mel Haynes was there. He was the street commissioner, and he was building the parking lot. And the mayor was there, Mayor Philly, and Sid Frizzell, he was the village manager. I went down there for hours, and Philly was drawing pictures, and if we build it this way, it's going to look like this, it's going to look funny, and if we do it this way, it'll be all nice in line, it'll look nice.
Mhm.
I said, I don't care how it's going to look, I need that space.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we got talking, all of a sudden, we were talking there for hours. I look at my watch, and it was 11 o'clock. I said, shit, 11 o'clock. I picked up my papers, and I walked out.
And so what happened?
So next morning, I meet Mel Haynes out here at 8 o'clock. I said, what happened after I left last night, Mel? He said, well, for about 15 minutes, nobody said anything. He says, they agreed to let you go ahead and do it your way.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, now, in the early years, what did you sell in the store in the beginning?
hardware. hardware and electrical appliances.
Okay, did you have washing machines from the
Oh,
very
sure.
beginning?
Well, yeah, we had wash machines, but they weren't the automatic type. They were the ones with the ringer on top.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you sell like refrigerators from the
Oh,
beginning?
sure.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
okay.
We saw a lot of refrigerators with the unit on top.
Mm-hmm,
They were heavy monsters.
mm-hmm.
And then we got Bendix come out with the wash machine. We sold Bendix. We used to sell a lot of Bendix washers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the times changed. They went on it after this, and there was a tumble action.
Mm-hmm.
Westinghouse started to make tumble action also, but then everybody got back to the agitator. Everybody makes agitator now.
Mm-hmm. From the beginning, did most of your customers come from Hastings?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Well, we always had a certain amount on top, but most of it was for Hastings people.
mm-hmm. And from the beginning, after you opened the store, you continued to do the electrical wiring
Oh,
and the
sure.
electrical work.
Oh, sure.
What was the most unusual or difficult wiring job that you ever did in Hastings?
No, I don't know. I think maybe during the war, World War II probably,
Mm-hmm.
the Ferrocart up in the aqueduct, they had a little bit of a plant up there. They had 2 or 3 men working. And they used to make things for the air cord out of iron powder, this black powder.
Is this in that brick building that's now has condominiums?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. The old Pace Pearl building?
nice Pearl building.
Okay.
Right.
And what was there during World War II?
The guy by the name of Ford.
Ford, F-O-R-D?
Yeah, he had this company called Ferrocart,
Mm-hmm.
and he had about 3 or 4 persons working for him. Then the war came on, and he got so busy making these things for the Air Corps.
Do you know what he made for the Air Corps?
Yeah, they were sort of a coil,
Mhm.
but it wasn't made out of wire. It was made out of iron powder.
Out of iron powder?
Yeah, and it blew all over the place. It was a mess up there. So we had to go up there and do wiring.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 1 bathroom up there on the 2nd floor. And he eventually took part of the 1st floor on the 2nd floor. And first thing you know, we had a couple of 100 people working there. They had 3 shifts, and they had no bath facilities.
Hmm.
So I had to go up there. The war was on. I had to go up there. I used to get up there maybe 6 o'clock in the morning and work maybe till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Mm.
And they get a couple hours sleep and go back and build the bathrooms, do the wiring. I used to repair the presses. These great big presses come down, 3,000 pounds, and make these cords, boom, and the pipes would break, and then we'd have to fix the pipes,
Mhm.
keep going, because there was a war. It was a
Right.
war plant.
Wasn't some of that plumbing work?
Yeah, I was in plumbing and electrical work, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no help. You couldn't hire nobody, and you couldn't even, it wasn't even hard wiring material, but he had priority. He could
You couldn't even what?
buy materials,
Mm-hmm.
but he had the priority, so we could
Because
get
he
the-
was supplying...
Yeah. So one day I says to him, I says, hey, I'm gonna get out of here, I'm gonna join the army. He says, no, you're not. He says, I got it all fixed up. He said, you can't leave here. So one day I met the man, I forgot his name. He was the head of the induction center here in Hastings. I
Mhm.
met him outside. I asked him if that was true. He says, yeah. He said, you can't quit there.
Oh, interesting. So have you always done plumbing work as well as electrical, or was it just during
No,
the
no,
war?
That was the first job.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So you had to build the bathrooms?
I built the bathrooms and I think there was 2 bathrooms for boys and 2 bathrooms for the girls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then do all the wiring.
Right.
There wasn't enough wire in the building. I had to put new wires in the building and everything.
Mhm.
I had to sit there and bring wires in.
Mm-hmm.
I kept busy.
Did you do much electrical work and or plumbing work in the waterfront factories?
What, me?
In the waterfront factories, did you do much
No.
work down there?
No, they had their own electricians.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about in a lot of the housing, the apartment buildings along Railroad Avenue and Washington Avenue and Warburton?
Yeah, well, I wired 3 of them on Railroad Avenue. I wired 3 buildings down there. 109, 111, and 115 Railroad Avenue. I wired those 3 buildings.
Did you do the original electrical wiring?
And that was buildings, yes.
Yes. And what year was that about?
That was right after they built this building. Old man Schmidt built those.
Mm-hmm.
See, the first occupant of this building was built by I forgot his name anyway. He started as a bakery,
Mm-hmm.
and then he built that building down there. And then the bakery then
Then he built what building down where?
down on 111
Railroad Avenue?
Railroad Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built, then old man Schmidt, he built 2 more buildings.
Mm-hmm.
109, 111, 115.
Mm-hmm.
Just the cold water flats.
So they were in the 1920s?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess so.
Oh, I thought those buildings had been built before that.
This building.
No, those buildings down on
Yeah.
Railroad Avenue.
Well, no, this was about the same time, but this was first.
Mm-hmm.
They were built later.
Mm-hmm. We have had some reports that some of the buildings in the area, the apartment buildings that were built to house the waterfront workers and the immigrants, that some of them had kind of dangerous conditions. Do you remember seeing any wiring that was dangerous?
Well, it's all according to the area.
Mm-hmm.
Not the area, but the times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of these buildings didn't have any wiring in them.
Mm-hmm.
They were wired later on.
Mm-hmm.
Those buildings down there that we spoke of, there wasn't.
Yes. 111, 109.
15, we wired those.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we just put one light in the middle, and they were glad to have one light in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, of course, people would run extension cords and so on themselves.
Well,
That was the danger.
We heard a story of them running like an extension cord from one building out the window to the building next door that wasn't wired.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
That's I don't know who would do that. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The first place that even Con Edison or whoever at that time was just a lighting company. They wouldn't stand for that.
Right.
They couldn't do
So
that.
you didn't know of a building down on Railroad Avenue that didn't have electricity for many, many years?
No.
Okay.
They all have electricity as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And did you do much of the wiring or rewiring in those buildings?
No, we got
Along Warburton and...
Yeah, we get down there once in a while and you know, put a plug here and there, especially in the kitchens. You know, everybody's got a microwave, refrigerator. Everybody had an ice box.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you do the wiring in that research house on the corner of High Street and Farragut?
Yeah,
Was that an unusual job?
yeah, it was a stupid job.
How is it stupid?
Well, the way it was made, first place, the rooms are too small.
Mm-hmm.
And the partitions and the walls, they're all made in the factory someplace.
Yes, it was a prefabricated building, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they come and you had to bolt them together, put bolts in the hole together.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, only last week, the fellow that owns it now, what's his name, Pete
Muckenhoff.
Mulkenhoff, he wanted to come down and talk about it. I said, I don't want to talk about it. I said, why don't you knock that building down? But he thinks he's got gold mine there. Knock that thing down, build a nice house there. You know, looking at it from the outside looks nice, but when you get inside, you can't move. You can't move in the kitchen. There's no room for a wash machine. And
Was it, I mean, you said it was a stupid job. Was it difficult to wire that because of the method of
yeah.
construction? At that
Sure.
time, it was kind of revolutionary.
yeah, well, all we did was put one light in the middle of each room,
Mm-hmm.
and the boiler was only about about 2 feet high and about a foot wide, a little bit of a thing, and had some kind of a motor on there. And that didn't last very long. I had to get rid of that, put a different plant in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an experimental thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie Horn was the architect. And he had me over there. I knew Charlie very well.
Mm-hmm.
And, We used to do a lot of work for Charlie. He was the architect for the government on the WPA jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know anything about electricity.
Mm-hmm.
He was an architect, but he was a theater architect,
Mm-hmm.
you know, building stages and stuff like that. Real nice fellow. And of course, he was doing work for the WPA, and he'd go in on these jobs, and he didn't know beans about the construction and
Mhm.
electrical work and stuff, so he used to ask me to go with him. So we got quite friendly, and then he built this thing over there.
Mm-hmm.
So one day we're up in Peekskill looking at the job, and I was fooling around with him, and he swung at me, and he hit me, and he knocked my glasses off. Is this thing on?
Yes. Why did he do that?
Well, we just fooling around.
Oh.
Yeah, my glasses went down the street. He was a real nice guy. And,
Did you rewire the or wire the Fraser house?
I rewired the Fraser house.
It had been wired by somebody else earlier.
I rewired that. That's all the walls are there, and everything is all concrete, all brick and concrete.
When did you rewire that?
I think that was 1950.
Oh, I see. Much more recently. I thought you
Yeah.
had done work years earlier.
No, I've never had done any work in there before that. I think I might have done some repairs.
Mm-hmm.
But Mrs. Fraser, the old Mrs. Fraser,
Mm-hmm.
she owned it, and she had her son George,
Mm-hmm.
and she was living in Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and she was remodeled this.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful.
Right.
And they had this contractor up there, and he was fooling around up there for almost 2 years.
Now that was in the 1930s, I think.
No, I don't think so. It was probably the 1950s.
Mm-mm. No, when she moved from New Jersey, it was way before that.
No, I don't think so. I got an idea it was after World War II.
Okay, I didn't think so, but.
I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure about that. Anyway, she used to come over weekends, and all the cables we put in, we had to cut the walls open to get the cable. Everything was brick.
Right.
Took a long time, and nobody had any contracts. Everybody's doing the work time and material. And the general contract, he had guys over there. And I guess they were sleeping in the attic half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So I met her up there one day, and she was mad. She was pretty old. I don't know how old she was. I thought, well, those days you were 60 years old.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But she was all gray, and she walked just as straight as could be,
Mhm.
and very fast step.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice person.
Mm-hmm.
So I got talking with her one day, and she says, I'm going to move into this building. She said, I'm going to get this building finished, she said, and get rid of this contract. And she said, I'm going to move in here. I said, you can't move in here, Mrs. Fraser. And I put my hand on the walls, and I said, you see that? There's no heat on the building. My hand is all wet.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you move in this building. I said, you're going to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
She moved in. About 2 weeks later or so, she died.
Oh.
She got pneumonia.
Mm.
You know, then George took it over the son.
Right.
And
Okay.
they moved, George and his wife moved in there. They lived there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Did you rewire 142 High Street,
142.
where I used to live? Did you wire that?
142. 142. Who lives there now?
The big house where I used to live. You were there when I was there, and the people who live there now, their name is Lewin.
What?
Lewin.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I wired that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wired that for, let's see, who lived there? I forgot who lived there when I wired it. But then there was Thompson lived on High Street.
Mm-hmm.
He bought it afterwards.
Yes.
Was that before your time?
Oh, way before.
Yeah, that was before your time. So
Mhm.
Thompson bought it, and I don't know why he ever bought that big building for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
But you wired it before that.
yeah, I wired before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I forgot the people's name that who lived there.
Okay. What year did you first join the fire department?
I think I made a note on that.
Okay.
I got here in 1928.
You joined in 1928, so
Yeah.
you were 21 years old.
Yeah.
And did you, what company did you join?
Uniontown, the best
Mhm.
company in Hastings.
Okay. Were you the only Italian in the Uniontown
Oh,
company at
no.
that time?
No, a lot of Italians over there.
What was it like when you joined? Tell me, who were the members and...
There was Pete Carey, who was very active. He used to live down here on Spring Street, on Main Street. And there was Toddy Fox. He was also Italian.
Fox was Italian?
Fox, yeah. Well, his name was Fasce, F-A-S-C-E, but they call him Fox. They call it name Fox.
Mr. Carey wasn't Italian.
Who?
The first name you mentioned.
Pete Carey? Oh, yeah, they were Italians.
He was Italian. That
Yeah.
sounds Irish.
Well, they might have changed it,
Mm-hmm.
but they was Italian. In fact, there was two Careys who were on there, Pete and his other brother.
Mm-hmm.
They both passed away. But most of them over there were Irish.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. There was the Costellos and the Dorns and the Flynns,
Mm-hmm.
the McLaughlins, and the Wrights, Bill Wright. He married one of the Dorns. But it was a tough place.
Tell me how it was tough.
Oh, well, we used to have meetings over there, but I tell you, we used to have some tough meetings.
In what way?
Well, somebody wanted to do this, and somebody wanted to do that, and do something else, and they get fighting about something. But it was all for the good of the company,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be some big arguments on the floor. And
What were the kinds of things that they argued about?
I don't know now. I don't know now. But
Mhm.
we had one fellow there, Henry Schaff, he was the treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to spend a certain amount of money, he wouldn't okay it. He was right too,
Mm-hmm.
because we had some guys over there, you know, that would spend everything.
Tell me what the house looked like in 1928, what the building looked like.
Well, I'd give you a picture of that if you want. In fact, I think the Historical Society got a picture.
Well, I wasn't sure. Was it that old wooden building?
Yeah.
Still?
Mhm.
That was a very pretty building.
Yeah,
Where did you have your meeting hall?
upstairs.
Uh-huh. Did anybody sleep in that building?
No,
Mm-hmm.
nobody else slept in any building, you know,
Mhm.
unless you expected something, you know,
Mhm.
they wouldn't stay over.
Mm-hmm. When you joined in 1928, that was when you were doing your electrical work here in Hastings.
Mhm.
Were you one of the younger members of Uniontown?
Well, most of us over there, we had a lot of young fellas over there,
Mm-hmm.
about my age.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Grote, he's still over there, and Dave Questo, and a lot of these fellas, they're still members. Bill Grote, of course, he's like me, he's not as active
Mm-hmm.
as he used to be.
What's his last name?
Grote, G-R-O-T-H.
Oh, sure. He's talked to the Historical Society a lot. He's great.
Yeah.
Were you the first member in your family to join the fire department in Hastings?
No, my brother Tommy was a member,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't last too long.
Oh,
He got out for some reason, I don't know why.
but did he join Uniontown?
Yeah, he was a member of Uniontown
Mm-hmm.
also.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good company in Uniontown. In fact, the whole fire department is good. You know, they're all enthusiastic, and they're all
Mhm.
trying to get to the fire first. You know, there was a lot of that kind of a spirit. You know, see
Mhm.
who get there first. But we had a very good company in the town, and we had a lot of members, you know, from all over the town. In fact, one time there we had about 75 members, and we had to close the books. We just wouldn't take nobody
I see.
because we had too many.
About how many members were there when you joined in 1928?
I would say there was about 40.
Mm-hmm. How many are there now?
Now, I'm not sure. I would say maybe about 30.
Mm-hmm. What was the first serious fire that you participated in?
Well, first serious fire was the Hastings pavement.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that was in what year about?
Well, that was about that time, about 28, 29.
Mm-hmm. And what was so serious about that? And
Well,
what did you have to do to fight that?
we couldn't lick it. The
Mhm.
fire was so hot.
Mm-hmm.
The place down there was full of oil. They made these blocks for the road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you've noticed them or not.
Yeah, I've seen them. Those.
They used to export those all over the country and I guess some the other side too.
Mm-hmm.
But they were made out of oil, and they used to press them down there and make these blocks.
Mm-hmm. These are the hexagonal blocks.
Yeah, and they used to make them that look like the regular bricks, only bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff was, when that started to burn, you just couldn't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
The great big beams, 2 feet in diameter, the heat was so terrific that these beams just bent in half.
Mm-hmm.
So it just went to the ground. That was the end of the Hastings Pavement Company.
Right. Was that as late as the early 30s?
Yeah, I would say, no, I think that was in 28, 29. Maybe,
Okay.
Maybe 29.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Was there only one fire at Hastings Pavement?
That's the only one I ever knew.
Right. Okay.
Anaconda used to have a few fires
Mhm.
once in a while, but that big ones like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did you do in the Hastings Pavement fire? What was your job down at the fire?
Well, I was new man then. That's why I know that it wasn't in the 30s. It was in the probably 28, 29.
Mm-hmm.
I was a new man. I was more of an onlooker. I stand by.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do much. I just watched. Nobody did much. You really couldn't do much. The
Mhm.
flames were, way up in the sky.
Mhm.
What you could do. We didn't have the equipment those days that we have now to fight fires.
Mhm.
We didn't have no pumpers, where we could pump water and put the pressure on. Now we have good equipment that we can fight a fire like that.
Mhm.
But a fire like that, even today, if we had it, even with the equipment we have today, it'd be very hard to put out.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard.
What was the first fire that you really took an active role in?
I think maybe Tarowski's, the first big fire was Tarowski's over the other side of the bridge.
On Warburton Avenue?
Yeah. That was
Mhm.
I don't know whether I was an officer there, I might have been a lieutenant.
Mm-hmm. That was like a 3 or 4 story apartment building.
Yeah, 3 stories.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of kerosene stoves and things like that, and kerosene stored in the back porches, and a lot of porches were made out of wood. And it was quite a fire.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite very active in there, but I had a lot of guys above me. I had the chiefs and captains, and they all were in. But anyway, I knew the building. I knew all these buildings. I knew these buildings. I know my way around.
Right.
So I sneaked into the building and I could see where the fire was. And so anyway, they called up Yonkers for help. Yonkers chief comes up, and I says to him, Chief Siller, I knew Chief Siller. I says, Chief, come on with me, I'll show you where the fire is. He says, okay. So I go in, I take him inside. What's involved? He said, let's get out of here. So we went across the street over to Chenard's garage. Had the garage over there, that Chenard Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They had the garage across, so we went over there, kept warm. Let it burn down.
Oh. But I remember everybody was saved from that building. There were some dramatic rescues.
Yeah, they did. Hokalada did some good work over there.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody got out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good hot fire.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe Yonkers Chief was right. But I was young and he had more experience, and we called them in. We got to listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do any good. They sent up 2 trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and they were stationed on the corner of Washington Avenue and Warburton. And the trucks were so bad, the smoke coming out of those trucks that kept the DPW in Hastings busy just supplying them with oil. They were burning more oil than gas.
The truck was?
Yeah, they were junk.
Because they weren't maintained well?
Well, I guess they were all,
Oh, uh-huh.
the Yonkers was that way. They never had good equipment.
Hmm.
And in fact, we gave Yonkers one of our old pieces of equipment, which was better than the equipment they had.
When did you first become an officer in the Uniontown Company?
Well, I wasn't in there very long before they made me an officer because I used to get up on the floor and fight all the time, so they made me an officer. I had every office. I had a secretary.
When you became an officer, when you say not very long, how many years?
Oh, I think I was there about 2 years when they made me a secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Then they made me treasurer. Then I was chairman of the company. And then they made me first lieutenant, second lieutenant, captain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into the chief's job after that.
Okay. How old were you when you became chief for the first time? Or do you remember the year? Is that here?
No, that's it. I was 32 years as chief, and the office of chief. You know, chief and assistant chief.
Mm-hmm.
It was 4 terms.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 8 years to become a third assistant chief. 2 chief takes 8 years. So
Right.
I was appointed 4 times as assistant chief and went up through the ranks 4 times. That's 32 years. I don't know what year. Maybe, of course, I was captain for 1 or 2 years. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time ago. Well, we had some good fires when I was chief.
Mm-hmm.
We had some good fires in Hastings. We had some good fires in Dobbs Ferry. We had some good fires in Yonkers.
Mm-hmm.
I saved Yonkers' neck a couple of times down there. We had a fire one night in Yonkers on Ridge Street or Ridge Road and Edwards Place, someplace down there. It was in the summertime. We got a cold down there. And we got down there in this 3-story building, all frame building. It was burning like the devil. And Yonkers never hooked up their hard suction. They always used the soft suction. And if you pump too much water out of soft suction, the hose collapses and you don't get any water.
Mm-hmm.
So we always use a hard suction. So if you want, you can suck the water right out of the mains.
Mm-hmm.
But Yonkers never does that. I don't know if they still do today or not, but it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we got down there and this thing was going. And so we come down the hill and I see 2 hydrants there. And Nuck was hooked up to 1 hydrant. And their lines are just about reaching the building. So Don Watrous, he was assistant chief and I was chief, my assistant Don. Hey Don, get 1 truck over here and pump water on this hydrant. And we'll get a couple of lines in on that water and that fire. So I went over to see how the hook and ladder was making out. So I left her. So Don calls me on the radio and he says, "Hey Roos," he says, "the Yonkers chief don't want us to use that line, that hydrant." He knew right away that the minute we put our hard suction on there, we were going to take the water away from his truck. And I said to Don, I said, "Don, they called us for help. We'll do it our way." I hook it up. I said, "So if they don't want us to hook it up, we'll go back." John said, "Okay," so he hooked it up. And we got the water. You want to see the water we got out of that hydrant. Make them look so silly, and everybody in the area started to clap. Oh, we had so much pressure, we're knocking the petitions are half burnt anyway, but we started to knock the petitions down. That's how much fire. Then from there, I sent the truck afterwards over to Song River Road. They had a little fire over there we put out for them.
Uh-huh. For the Yonkers department.
For the Yonkers department.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we had another fire on one afternoon down in, I think it's 277 Broadway, the Yonkers. And they were down there fighting, and the fire chief was sitting on the curb, and he was all sweat. It was a hot day, all sweat. He says, "Hey, Roast," he says, we knew him. We used to invite all these guys up. We don't anymore because it's a little hard feelings. But he said, "Go in there and see what you can do." I said, "Okay, let's bring a pot for them." And they were complaining that there was no water. There was water. They didn't have the hard suction hooked up again.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the building. I went up on the roof. And the chief was up on the roof, and he was cutting up the roof instead of going inside.
Mm-hmm.
The roof was on fire. But he couldn't get the water through because of the steel beams were stopping the water from going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to Mike, we got to get downstairs. Got to fight the fire from downstairs. So we couldn't get into the rooms downstairs. And I guess they couldn't either.
Mm-hmm.
So right behind us, who comes in right behind us? The New York City Fire Department. So the guy says, "What's the matter, boys? Can't you get in?" "No, the steel doors." "Steel doors?" He said, "Okay." He takes that little tool out of his pocket, put it on the lock, and hits it with a hammer, and the door flies open. The Yonkers didn't have one of those tools.
We got them now. So we went in there with a line of hose and we pulled down the ceilings. We were fighting with the New York Fire Department then.
Right.
And we went in there, pulled the ceilings down, put the fire out. Got another fire one night down the walk right there. We just about got down there.
In Yonkers?
Yeah. We just about got down there and they were fooling around with this building. That must have been fighting it for a long time ago. We got down there, just as we got down there, the whole wall collapsed. The brick wall collapsed. It just missed us.
Wow, God.